Marcus had driven rideshare for 3 years, and he thought he'd seen every kind of passenger there was. He was wrong. His last fare of the night would make absolutely sure of that, in ways he never saw coming. The request came in at 1:47 in the morning, a pickup from a quiet residential street with no name attached to the profile, just an address and a 5-star rating. Marcus almost declined it. Something told him not to. He accepted the ride anyway, the way he always did. The passenger was already waiting when he pulled up, standing perfectly still under a streetlight, watching the car approach like she'd been expecting exactly this vehicle, at exactly this time, on exactly this night. She got in without a word, gave a destination 20 minutes away, and then said nothing else for several minutes. In the rearview mirror, Marcus noticed she wasn't looking at her phone the way most passengers did. She was looking directly at him. "You've done this route before," she finally said. It wasn't a question. Marcus said he drove all over the city, that was simply the job. She replied evenly, "No, I mean exactly this route at exactly this time of night. 3 times this month alone." Marcus felt something cold settle low in his stomach. He hadn't mentioned his schedule to anyone ever. He certainly hadn't mentioned this specific route, one he privately thought of as his shortcut, the one almost no passenger ever actually requested. She continued, calm and precise, like she'd rehearsed this exact moment. 3 women took this exact route with this exact driver over the past month. None of them made it to their actual stated destination. All 3 were later found safe, physically unharmed, but with no memory of how they'd actually gotten home that night. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel until his knuckles went pale. He told her, voice steady, that he had no idea what she was talking about, that she must have the wrong driver entirely. She said calmly that she didn't think so. She said she had specifically requested him by name. She held up her phone. On the screen was a photo of his car, time-stamped from 2 weeks earlier, parked outside a house that wasn't anywhere on any official route he had access to through the driving app. "I'm not who you think I am," Marcus said, his voice noticeably tighter now, the car slowing without him quite meaning it to. She replied, quiet and certain, "I know exactly who you are. That's precisely why I'm sitting in this car right now and not one of them." She reached slowly into her jacket, and for one long, suspended second, Marcus genuinely believed he was about to die right there on that empty road. Instead, she produced a badge. "Detective," she said simply. "I've been trying to prove this exact route was the connection for 3 straight weeks." Marcus pulled the car over onto the shoulder, hands visibly shaking now, and finally told her the truth, all of it, in a rush. He wasn't taking anyone anywhere they didn't want to go. He was quietly following them after drop-off at a distance, making sure they got inside safely, because of what happened to his sister 2 years earlier on a route almost identical to this one. His sister had taken a rideshare home late one night, years ago now. The driver was never identified, never found, the case eventually going cold. Marcus had been quietly, almost obsessively, watching over women on this particular stretch of road ever since, never once telling anyone why, terrified it would sound exactly as suspicious as it currently did, sitting there in the dark. The detective studied him for a long, silent moment, weighing something in her expression. Then she said quietly, "That matches nothing currently in our file, but it explains a great deal we genuinely couldn't otherwise account for." She asked him formally to come in and give a full statement about everything he'd seen. 2 days later, Marcus sat across a table from the same detective, this time in a small, fluorescent-lit interview room, walking her through 18 months of notes he'd kept privately. License plates, timestamps, patterns only someone watching that closely could have ever noticed in the first place. What Marcus didn't fully realize, sitting there answering question after question, was that one specific detail he'd mentioned almost in passing, a particular car parked twice on that same street, would become the very first solid lead the department had in 18 months of searching. 3 weeks later, the detective called him directly, something she said she wasn't technically supposed to do this early in an active case. She told him the plate he'd noticed had come back registered to a man with 2 prior complaints, both dismissed for lack of evidence, both involving women on rideshare routes. They asked Marcus, carefully, if he'd be willing to keep driving his normal route for a few more weeks while an unmarked unit watched from a distance. He said yes without hesitating, though part of him wondered if he was finally about to get real answers, or just more waiting. 2 weeks into it, on an ordinary Tuesday night, Marcus watched a car he now recognized pull slowly alongside a woman walking from a nearby rideshare drop-off point. He did the only thing he could think to do. He called it in immediately, exactly like he'd been told to. Officers were there within 4 minutes. Marcus never saw the arrest itself, only the lights, reflected red and blue against the wet street, from 2 blocks away where he'd been told to stay back and out of the way. He never did find out for certain if it was connected to his sister's case specifically. Some questions, he was slowly learning, simply don't get clean answers, no matter how long you spend quietly watching for them in the dark. But for the first time in 2 years, sitting alone in his car as the sun finally came up over the skyline, someone else was looking too. And for Marcus, after everything, that alone felt like it mattered. Follow for more stories where the truth arrives from the last direction you'd ever expect.